survivability in endgame and being able to do a lot within endgame instead of just being back in the back corner, scout rifling away, whatever it may be. This build for Warlocks that I've been using for quite a bit now has made it so much more fun to play high-end content, at least to a master level. From making this video, I have yet to try this build in a Grandmaster, but honestly, I think this could totally work within a Grandmaster, as this build survivability rate, upping it to an 11 that is probably not needed, but at the same time, you want to live, don't you? So you should just listen to this video and let me show you. On the screen, I will be having some gameplay of Master. Once again, let's get straight into this, starting off with Warlock in the Prismatic subclass. We're going to jump right in, and it's going to be starting off with Nova Bomb as our super. You can totally use any other super if you would like to, but obviously my reasoning will come within the fragments. For abilities, we are going to be using Phoenix Dive as our class ability because it has a shorter base cooldown. It activates much faster, obviously. It activates quite at an instant, so you can get saved pretty easily when in a dire situation. Our melees, we are going to be using Arcane Needle because Arcane Needle, it gives you 3 charges, which we'll be looking at more when we get to the aspects. For our grenade, we're going to be using a solar grenade, which is the healing grenade, sorry. If you want to use something different, go on ahead. I'm using a healing grenade just because this build is like up to an 11 for a healing build and just decimation build to keep you alive. So I'm kind of using anything I can to just keep the healing up. Can't go wrong with it. For our aspects, this is where the Arcane Needles come in handy because we're going to be using Lightning Surge. Lightning Surge is, whilst sliding, activate your charged melee ability to blink forward, calling down lightning strikes that jolt targets as you rematerialize. And my favorite part, targets that are hit by your lightning strikes grant you stacks of bolt charge. Personally for me, I really always like to have bolt charge in my build. Lightning Surge just automatically giving me that, perfect. And the other aspect is going to be Helion. And you might be wondering, why not Devour? I know Devour is super good. You get additional health. Obviously, we know how Devour works, and you get grenade energy when you get kills. We don't need that. We don't need that. It's fine. Helion is the choice of mine. If you want to use the Stasis Turret or the Threadlings, you totally can, but Helion, it's really good. It scorches targets. It can ignite targets. I would rather take that. Moving on to the fragments, we are going to be using Faceted Protection. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage, and while Transcendent, the effect is really increased. With this whole build, you're going to be by a lot of enemies most of the time, so having just more protection on yourself, more damage reduction is always great. Moving on is going to be Facet of Courage, which is your Arc, Solar, and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs, which is going to be happening a lot as well because of a artifact perk where your strand weapons be granted unraveling rounds when picking up an orb, making it so your lightning surges do more damage to those targets afflicted by the unraveling. Next is going to be Facet of Purpose, where picking up an orb of power grants either bolt charge, restoration, frost armor, woven mail, or overshield based on the damage type of your equipped super. And obviously, once I said at the beginning, we are using Nova Bomb, which is going to be giving you a void overshield. And the reason I am liking to use void overshield is because void overshields act as a second layer of health. When you have a void overshield active, you take damage. The only thing taking damage is the void overshield, not your base white health. Really does keep you alive. For the next prismatic fragment is going to be Facet of Honor, where collecting an elemental pickup or destroying a tangle grants transcendent energy of the same type. This really pairs well with the now Facet of Awakening, which is our next fragment, where rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows generates elemental pickup of the matching damage type. This is where your transcendence energy really comes in handy because we will be making a lot of ionic traces, void breaches for light side, and a bunch of tangles, and just doing a lot of strand damage. So your transcendent energy will be going up a lot, and obviously again in the gameplay down below you're gonna easily be able to notice it, and it's great. It's really great. And for our final prismatic fragment, it is going to be Facet of Dawn, where powered melee hits against targets make you radiant, and powered melee final blows make you and nearby allies radiant. With the lightning surges, you're going to be doing that a lot. You're going to have radiant almost all the time. Whenever you obviously activate this, you should always probably get a kill with lightning surge no matter what. And if allies are near you, you can easily give them a free 20% extra damage buff for their weapons for 5 seconds. And with lightning surges having 3 charges, that's basically 15 seconds of radiance, or even longer if you are transcendent. For the exotic armor, we'll cover this really quick because it's very simple. The exotic gauntlets we're using here are going to be Karnstein armlets, and I know what you're thinking, what in the world are these gauntlets? Or I have not used these gauntlets in forever. Well, Vampire's Caress is the exotic perk for this, and melee and finisher final blows instantly grant cure and provide restoration for a short duration. When I tell you the cure part of this saves my life, it saves my life. It truly does. And obviously it gives you restoration. If you're doing a just simple melee kill, or even your lightning surges get a kill, you get restoration ×1. The best part of this is if you get a finisher before you decide to start going into lightning surges, finishers grant you restoration ×2. And if you activate restoration ×2 before going in for lightning surges, you can refresh the restoration ×2 even with regular melees or your lightning surges, which obviously is great. Restoration ×2 is only ever really possible on Solar Warlock. You have it here now in your literal hands. And for these gauntlets and this whole build, I'll say this already, I straight up just use 2 heavy-handed armor mods. Basically every 5 seconds I do end up using a powered melee and get a kill. It's just a free way to get just some overshield health from my boots mods, and again, it's just great. For our weaponry, we'll go through this pretty quick as well. We're going to be using the Michael's Reverence sidearm. This sidearm comes from Root of Nightmare's raid, and the perks I use for this is going to be rewind rounds and frenzy. These are just my preferred perks. I like using these, and obviously the reason we're using this as our primary weapon is, one, sidearms are the anti-barrier round weapons for this season. Obviously there's snipers, I'm not going to use a sniper, but using a strand sidearm and use this paired with unraveling orbs, where picking up an overpower, or a tangle grants strand weapons unraveling rounds, and horde shuttle, where damaging unraveled targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a threadling. And trust me, that occasionally is basically almost every other shot. It's so great. This is where your darkness transcendent energy really comes from. We'll come back to the artifact here in a little bit, but that is mainly the reason I use this primary exotic weapon we will be using. And I'll say this right now, if you don't want to use this after what I say, because it might sound like overkill, because trust me, this build is like all based on healing, keeping you alive. I'm turning it up to 11 by using this, is Buried Bloodline. Buried Bloodline, obviously the main feature of this thing is multiple final hits with this weapon grant Devour to the wielder. I think it takes about 3 or 4 red bar kills to activate Devour, but it only takes 1 orange bar or yellow bar to activate Devour. So that's where you definitely really want to try to get your Devour from. You can obviously still get the red bars, it's fine, but when you see an orange bar, try to kill it with this thing. And for heavies, I'm personally going to stick to using Scintillation because it's a strand weapon. This is probably the best linear I personally do have with rewind rounds and bait and switch. Again, this takes advantage of the unraveling orbs and as well as horde shuttle, so when you're damaging bosses or whatever you're shooting at, you're doing a little bit extra with it. And obviously we have particle reconstruction this episode. For our armor mods, this is what I personally use. On the helmet, we're going to be using 1 heavy ammo finder mod as well as a strand siphon. On the gauntlets, I think pretty sure I already said earlier, I use 2 heavy-handed mod, and every 5 seconds of a powered melee kill, I will spawn in an overpower. Easy overpower when I'm in a group a bunch of enemies. I get avoid overshield, and it's all good to go. For the chestplate, I always rock 1 concussive dampener, and then the other 2 slots, if I can fill them, are gonna be just whatever threat is within the current activity I'm in. For my boots, we are going to be using 1 recuperation, where you replenish health each time you pick up an overpower, and the other 2 are going to be void surges. This is mainly going to be for our buried bloodline. And for our class item, I am using 1 powerful attraction, and I personally just do like using time dilation. For the artifact perks, all of these honestly that I have chosen help you in all ways possible. Column, we're going to be using unstoppable fusion and mainly piercing sidearms. Once we get to the second column, volatile marksman. Next is unraveling orbs. Again, we've went through this. The third column, we have dielectric, where defeating arc debuff targets grant bolt charge. Next is disruptor spiked, improves effects of exhaust and sever, lowering the target's damage output even further. Exhaust comes from anything that disrupts overloads, which is going to be jolting. So when you jolt targets, they're going to be exhausted, they're going to be dealing less damage, especially if that you're being in a bunch of group of enemies, maybe you didn't kill a knight, that knight is still going to be exhausted, doing less damage to you. Next is Photonic Flare. Defeating an exhausted or severed target with arc damage releases a blinding burst. You're going into a group of ads with a jolting aspect. That jolting aspect exhausts people. That jolting aspect is arc damage, and that arc damage releases a blinding burst. You see that? You see that synergy right there? Next is going to be Flashover. When you gain maximum bolt charge, you also become amplified. That's cool, but the main thing is lightning bolts deal more damage. So obviously we want that. If we got bolt charges going and running, we want our lightning bolt charges to do more damage. Next is Horse Shuttle. Again, damaging unravel targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a threadling. And our final column is Particle Reconstruction. Obviously, our last one is Defibrillating Blast. Stunning a champion grants maximum stacks of bolt charge and triggers an arc bolt that heals you and jolts combatants that it damages. So again, another thing that jolts, and obviously anytime you activate a bolt charge, and it doesn't matter how it's activated, whenever you activate a bolt charge, it's gonna heal you. So once again, another healing factor within this build. But that is going to be the build. I mean, the main gameplay of how you do this build is going to be this. This first part is definitely optional because, again, it depends on if you're going to be using and sticking to Buried Bloodline. Try to activate Devour with Buried Bloodline. Once Devour is active, go in with your Lightning Surges. Once you get some Orbs of Power and your strand weapon gets some unraveling rounds, give it a little bit and just start shooting some enemies and getting that unraveling rounds out there, because then those targets will be affected by a darkness debuff, which then your lightning surges will be able to do more damage to those targets. But before you go into those lightning surges, maybe get yourself a finisher, so you activate Karnstein's armlets for a restoration ×2 and then start going in for lightning surges, keeping up the refresh timer of the restoration ×2, curing you in the process as well if you are for some reason at very low health. Every once in a while with a lightning surge, again, shoot some enemies with your strand weapon, get those unraveling rounds out there and everywhere. Oh dang, your transcendence ability should be ready by this point. Activate transcendence, throw out your grenade, go on a lightning surge spree, because being transcendent refills your ability energy really fast, especially when dealing damage with your grenade, recharges your melee charges way faster, and vice versa. Oh wow, you're getting a lot of lightning surges kills, so your transcendence is refilling up quite frequently, so you can constantly keep on doing this before it decides to end. I just lightning surged and got an orb of power. Let me unravel some targets for a little bit again. And don't forget, because I'm still getting used to it because I don't use it that much, Helion, activate your class ability. Get your Helion out there and scorching targets and igniting targets. And as I'm telling you all this, I'm probably playing the gameplay of me doing this really small room in a master Nightfall all by myself. My teammates left me. I was able to clear out this whole room and finish this whole like encounter thing. But one thing I forgot to mention, which is my fault, if you didn't want to use the Nova Bomb Super, or you don't want to use Karnstein armlets, but you want to try this build out, you can definitely use an exotic class item. And the only one I've seen that is pretty decent and works pretty well is going to be the Spirit of Necrotic, where melees cause damage over time and spread poison. Then obviously Spirit of Syntheseps, improves melee damage when you're surrounded, so you get way more damage with your lightning surges just going into a group of enemies. That's where you're basically going to be doing anyways, so it's really helpful. But that is going to be everything with this build. If you enjoyed this video, please definitely drop a like, comment down below what you guys think of this build. Let me know if you're going to try this build, and if you did try this build, please definitely come back and leave a comment telling me how you did like the build. If you want to see more Destiny content or gaming content, please definitely hit that subscribe button, as we will be having a couple more build videos coming on out within the next week. So I'll be working on that as soon as this is also done and uploaded. And yeah, again, I hope you enjoyed. Catch you guys in the next one. You guys have a good rest of your day. Peace out.